Chapter 7, If you want revenge, give yourself to me. The next morning, what they found was horrifying. 3 men are torn into pieces and scattered in such a way that it makes a perfect circle around the village. None of them was eaten, they were just killed. They also found paw prints, some are even bigger than human feet. The villagers knew that those were wolves' paws. The other thing which was bizarre is that wolves didn't attack anyone in the tent or any homeless person sleeping on the streets. During this chaos, Axel was nowhere to be found. Alec thought Axel might show up by afternoon, but when he didn't come, he started getting worried. The soldiers were waiting for their orders, and Alec knew that they will not listen to a commoner or to someone who was like a servant of their general. The thought of Axel being irresponsible filled him with anger. He had been looking for him the whole day but was unable to find him. The thought did cross his mind that he might get caught in the wolves' attack, but they heard 3 screams and they found 3 dead bodies. It was getting dark and he could not dwell on these thoughts because there is a possibility that wolves might attack again. When he got to the soldiers' tent, they were angry. I might kill him if he shows his face again. We wasted our time thinking that we might get training from the Dragon Clan warrior, we were stupid, was the common talk amongst them. You should think about how to protect the village instead of whining about the general, Alec shouted. This made them get up on their feet. That night wolves attacked again, but it was more terrifying because this time they found 6 mutilated bodies. The Journal of Wolves Attacks Week 3. We are tired. My body and my back aches, and yet I am unable to see any pattern in the wolves' attacks. Sometimes they attack regularly and sometimes their attacks are random. From their paws, we think there are 20 of them, but we are unable to kill even one of them. We made a fence of bushes and thorns around the village. We also set some traps, we dug holes full of spikes. We find some fur on the thorns, but we are unable to kill or trap any single one of them. It's like they know our plans beforehand. When the soldiers are unable to stop the attacks, they had no choice other than to ask me for help. I am the bridge between soldiers and the villagers. The reason behind this is that villagers see me as a cast out among the soldiers. I do come with them, but I am not one of them, was the common thought of the soldiers. That gave me an opportunity to get close to the villagers as they don't like the soldiers. I find that there were 4 groups in this village. One who is native to the village, the other is the soldiers, then there are those who came to seek refuge and no names. I already know that there is some friction between these groups, so I made a round table. The idea is to take representatives from each group and come up with solutions. The round table worked for some time, but the body count doesn't decrease. Soon, 2 cults emerged. One who believes that they should worship the wolves instead of fighting, and for our insolence we should sacrifice. The other group doesn't worship them but believes that wolves come for the kids, and we should give them what they want. By doing so, they will stop coming and even protect us. Both these groups are refugees and their beliefs are aligned with each other. When the wolves killing didn't stop, the idea of sacrificing kids started gaining attention and their followers increased rapidly. The wolves have also changed their attacks. Now they don't just kill their victim but play with them until they die. They slam them on doors and we can hear their screams and the sounds of bones cracking. Although the streets are well lit, still nobody dares to come out. People go to their homes before the sun goes down and come out when there is full light. For the past few days, wolves roam around growling on the streets. Whoever they bit died in a day or 2, as if they are poisoned. The fear and hopelessness are indescribable, and even some soldiers also agree to child sacrifice. The sacrifice stories are different for different people and I am not sure if they are true or not. In last week's meeting, they almost agreed on child sacrifice, but no one wants to sacrifice their own child. Doraldum, who came with refugees and was chief of some village. He is the face of the whole sacrifice movement. He suggests that we should sacrifice no names, and the whole village agreed. Some soldiers disagree. So, the cults start punishing people by abandoning them on the streets. At that point, my ideas are exhausted. There is an orphanage on the top of hill just 20 or 15 feet far from the mythical forest. It is an ominous-looking black building, 2 or 3 stories high, and there are hundreds of no-name kids living in it. They are part of the village. They come to the village every day, do different jobs for the villagers, and in return, they get paid. They are self-sufficient and they have their own identity as no-names in the village. Although, they have their seat at the table, but no one ever come. They said that their leader was busy and she will come. Other than her name I don't know much about her. The next day after the decision of sacrificing no-names, the villagers were waiting for them to come to the village, but none of them came. Sylvia and some soldiers were nowhere to be found, but that night wolves attacked again. This time, they even invaded the houses and the camps. Suddenly, our safest place became a cage. No-names stopped coming to the village. Wolves are killing more and more humans, but no one wants to go near the orphanage as they think that it's cursed. Dorldum convinced some men to negotiate with the no-names. His offer is simple: to give 5 kids for sacrifice every month in return for food and basic necessities, as they are not working but still need to survive. He even sweetened the deal by saying that they don't have to work for it ever again. He presented the deal standing outside the orphanage as he couldn't muster the courage to go inside. They didn't answer nor came to the village, so he tries to break into the orphanage by taking down the door. Surprisingly, they were unable to do anything because the orphanage is made up of black wood. They try to burn it, and they could hear them cry and struggle. Dorldum kept at it till evening, thinking that kids might come out due to smoke, but that also didn't work. In the end, he decided to come back the next morning. That day at the table, he decides to choose 5 kids from the village till they are able to get no-names to agree. The pressure from friends, family and neighbors grew far greater than the love of a mother. These women are forced to give away their children as a sacrifice. When nightfall, Dorldum's followers start gathering the kids. They snatched them from their crying mothers, tie them up in the middle of the street and start waiting for the wolves to come. I was there. I wanted to stop them, but when I saw the beast, I felt weak in my knees. The horror, disappointment, and fear I felt at that time were real, and I gave up. The wolves take the kids in front of their mothers. The children were screaming, and their mothers were yearning for help, but none of us was brave enough to face the beast. They were gigantic, they were taller than us. They had big strong jaws with canines long enough to tear a person apart. We were unable to look straight into their eyes as they have such a piercing stare. It felt like their fur was made up of iron or steel. They were of different colors, but most of them were gray. One of them was my landlady, Violet March's child. She is a kind-hearted, hard-working lady, and tried to help her people as much as she can. Her husband was killed by the wolf, still she stood by me when everyone was against me. She stood by me through thick and thin because she believes that I could be the one who could avenge her husband, and here I am unable to save her only son who was 1 year old. He was her whole life, her reason to live, and was the only memory left of her husband. When wolves took her child, she looked at me and I was on my knees, helpless. I could feel her pain and her disappointment in me. I couldn't look her in the eyes now. I was unable to get out of my room and feel sick in my stomach. I can't get the sight of last night out of my head. Whatever I stand for meant nothing now, as I have failed everyone. I failed Violet, Sylvia, and most of all, the White King. I wonder if Exel was here, would things be different? I don't see any other way to get out of this misery. As an apology, I am going to take my life. I am sorry. Alec Strom. When Alec was about to take his life, he heard a commotion. They are here, the no-names are here. Alec's heart sunk with the thought that they are going to sacrifice them. He thought that he should hurry and kill himself because he couldn't take it anymore. How that could be? You are alive? Dorldum asked. Alec was about to shove his knife in his chest when he heard. Shut the fuck up. I am here. He recognized that voice, but he couldn't believe it, so he ran to his window and looked outside. He was standing wearing black clothes and long black strands of hair covering half of his face. It was him. It was Axel. He was standing in the middle of the road with Sylvia on his right. His hand is on the shoulder of a girl shorter than him, barely reaching his shoulder. There are some soldiers standing with them and some young men and women, probably in their 20s and 30s. They were wearing black armors just enough to cover their chest and knees. The orphans were behind them. Villagers seemed to know that girl. "Now bring that table," the girl shouted. A giant man came with a black table on his shoulder and slammed it in the middle of the road in front of Dorldom with such a force that it might shatter into pieces. The no-names placed 4 chairs around it. That girl helped Axel to be seated and she sat beside him. Sylvia was standing behind Axel while that giant stands behind her. Alec ran down to the road. As he reached there, he didn't believe what he was looking at. Sylvia was there, Axel is alive, and there are a bunch of people who look like bandits. What is the meaning of all this? There is no round table anymore. Now, I am the chief of this village, Dorldom claimed. But I was not there, so that doesn't count, and if anybody has any objections, they can discuss with him, Axel said, pointing towards the huge guy. Please take your seats, we need a representative from the village and from refugees. No names will be represented by Miss I, and the soldiers are represented by General Axel, Sylvia said loudly. The soldiers become angry and one of them shouted, "How dare you? Where were you when we were dying?" Before he could say anything else, the giant man threw wolf skin on the table. Everyone gasped and started murmuring. I did that. If any one of you could even think of doing that, then he is welcome to challenge me, and if not, then shut up and stand behind me. Axel's voice was rough and he commanded authority. He made clear that he's willing to kill. So, you are the reason why they are killing so many of us, because you killed one of the wool. Dorldom yelled, but Axel cut him out by ordering him, "Sit down. How dare you to talk like that to our savior?" Another giant who was the right hand of Dorldom came forward. This is also a reason why nobody talks back to Dorldom. Go and teach him some manners. Axel asked the giant behind him. I'll take care of this, I said. As he was about to punch her, she punched him instead, and to their shock she sent him flying without getting a scratch. There is a dent in his armor and she broke some of the ribs in his chest. This shook Alec, Dorldom and all the soldiers because her stature was small and looked like a kid. She didn't seem very muscular. The villagers knew that she has some kind of superhuman strength, although she gets sick easily and needed extra attention. She was the leader of no-names, called I. Dorldom was stunned and didn't have a choice, so he sat down quietly. We need someone who could represent villagers, said Sylvia. Nobody wanted to take on that responsibility, but then Violet came forward and took the seat. Her eyes were red because she cried the whole night and looked devastated. Very well then, let's begin the roundtable meeting, Sylvia said. You want to sacrifice us and I am against it. I think we should kill those beasts. We can still sacrifice ourselves, not for the village but for Axel if he says so. I said. That was not what anyone would have expected, and they started muttering. You bring that on us, so you should deal with it. Why should we sacrifice our kids? We should sacrifice no-names. What good are they for? Dorldom said, and the crowd started shouting. Yeah. Alec knew what it feels like to be cornered. He had faced that during his time on the round table. He thought that it was all over. Now Axel has to give in. No-names are already willing to die for him. I just want revenge. Violet shouted, which silenced the crowd. I want revenge from the wolves, from him, she said, pointing toward Dorldom, and from this entire village. First, they took my husband in the name of the village, and then they took my child. They give him to the wolves. What did my child do to you? Why should he be sacrificed? Haven't I given enough? Then she looked straight in Alec's eyes. He called you uncle, why didn't you save him? Sylvia realized that they sacrificed her child. Other mothers also started crying. He just said her child, she said, pointing toward Dorldom, and the villagers snatched my child. Why? Because my husband died. Why? Because you saw us as a weak target? Her cries filled others with sadness and sorrow, and some of them start crying. I'll give you anything, you can have me if you want, but kill those monsters. Other mothers who lost their children threw themselves in Exel's feet and offered their lives to him. What the hell is this? I saved you from those beasts, and that's how you repay me? Women don't have any say in the matter. It was a unanimous decision. Dorldom protested. Exel tied his hair. It was the second time when Alec saw him with his hair tied up. First, when he fought the twin prince, and today on the round table. He knew that sinister smile, which he once gave to Lionheart in the arena, like he was challenging him. Okay. If you want child sacrifice, you can do it, but on 2 conditions. Exel said to Dorldom. That suggestion was shocking for I and Sylvia. Dorldom saw the opportunity to save his skin because those women were asking for his head. Finally. Someone sensible here, I'm listening, said Dorldom. First condition is that, as children don't know right or wrong, so the decision will be done by some adult. They will not be sacrificed if Miner's mother, father, or any relative is against it. Second, the adult who agree for the child sacrifice should have given birth to that child, and if the child doesn't have any guardian, then the table will decide, and no one can deny that. As Exel was speaking, some people from the crowd agreed on each term, shouting yeah, yeah, and this made him suspicious that they might be Dorldom's pets. That's reasonable, we can agree on that. Dorldom agreed and suggested that from the table Exel should be the one to take the decision. He suggested that because he wanted to cover up for his image. You see, it is a tough decision, and clearly these people think that my decisions are faulty. However, they trust you, even the no-names will sacrifice themselves for you. That's why you should choose. Dorldom said slyly. Dorldom thought that he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He gave Exel's name because that will put all the burden on him and help Dorldom to come out clean in everyone's eye. He thought that Exel will choose no-names and sacrifices will continue. So do we agree? Exel said loudly, and the crowd agreed. Now, choose 5 kids for next month, General Exel. Dorldom taunted. If so, I choose you, him, and him. All of them were perplexed, and Dorldom asked, I don't understand, we are no kids. Yes, but I choose you, or you can say your family, so you can offer me your kids, and remember, you should be given birth to the one you offer. The others I choose are the ones who said yeah to every condition which I gave till now. Alec now realized that those conditions were not for sacrifice, but against it. The child cannot ask for their sacrifice, so no-names can't sacrifice themselves as they are orphans. If someone is against it, then the sacrifice is no more, and it will give all the power to the mothers, because they are the ones who gave birth to them. Only they can offer a sacrifice, which means even Exel is not eligible because he didn't give birth to them. How can I give birth to a child? I am a man. Dorldom objected, he also doesn't have a family. You seem so sure that wolves won't attack today. So, you will stay out on the streets from today on, and about the child, I suggest you give birth to one till the wolves return. If anyone has objections, they can talk to him, pointed towards the giant standing behind him. He doesn't have a name, but you can call him the big guy. Dorldom realized that Exel has a large army and can impose whatever he wanted, and he is now in big trouble. If you want revenge, give yourself to me, your talents, your flaws, your life and soul, and I will kill them 10 times over, whoever is responsible for your child's death. Exel stood up and said in an authoritative voice with that sinister smile on his face. Then he looked into Alec's eyes. The training will start early in the morning, tell those who are willing to be there. Now, I'm tired and going to get some rest. And the meeting was dismissed.